Welcome to ECTV Live. I'm Rusty Fender here. David DeCosmo is on some personal business. We wish him well. He should be back with us on the next show. But joining us today from PennDOT District 4 at the entrance to the Keystone Industrial Park in Dunmore, we went right to the top. Right to the big guy, the head cheese, the main man for District 4, encompassing 6 counties of Wayne, Pike, Susquehanna, Wyoming, Lackawanna, and Luzerne. My good friend of many, many years. We worked together, of course, back and forth with information transfer on the radio and television. Dennis Giordano joins us. Dennis, good to see you, my friend.
Same to you, Rusty. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. What is your exact title? Because your business card has a hinge on it that folds out, David. Dennis.
My title is the Assistant District Executive for Maintenance in Engineering District 4L.
And Dennis has been with the, how long have you been with the?
I've been with the organization for 33 years.
Well, you know, we hate newcomers to the business, but again, instead of going to all the folks who I worked for, we figured we'd go to the top and get the lowdown on what's going on in District 4 in this area. Of course, a lot going on, as a matter of fact. And, you know, I go way back, as you all know, with you know, not only the folks in the company now, like, you know, James May, of course, and David Crisanda and Karen Dussinger. I go back to the Raleigh Kiesling days, as you well know, from the 80s. He worked with my father many, many years ago in the E&P supermarkets. Raleigh's dad did. But again, the Department of Transportation, or PennDOT, has taken on a whole new look, I think, in the last 15 years. And it's all about really caring for the public and caring for the motorists. Now, again, you can't please all the people all the time, Dennis.
Correct.
But I mean, tell us about what you've seen in the department in your 33-year reign, and there's been a lot.
Well, if there's one thing that's constant, Rusty, I think in PennDOT, and that is change. One of the biggest things we've had to overcome over the several years has been funding. I have to thank our legislature for Act 89. That helped us tremendously as it relates to our roads and bridges, because quite frankly, we are severely underfunded. We have the most roads and bridges in the whole northeast corridor of the United States, including New Jersey, New York, and the whole New England put together. That's hard to imagine for a state like the Commonwealth, but that really is the situation.
And you know, it's interesting too, and I make a note of this all the time. Folks, you know, sometime, of course, you can never please anyone. You do maintenance in the daytime, they say, people, why don't you do it at night? Well, there's a safety issue there. Then the night people say, you know, people work at night. Why don't you do it on the weekend? And then the people on the weekend say, you know, we work at the mall on Saturday and Sunday. You know, stores are open on Saturday and Sunday. Do it on the holidays. And that's just, you could never please anyone. But this area has one of the highest concentrations, as you alluded to, of interstates with Turnpike, which is technically I-476.
Right.
81, 84, 38, and 80 go through your district.
Correct.
There are some states that only have one interstate, and this is the biggest concentration of interstates. There's a lot on your plate, Dennis.
That's correct, Rusty. And I don't even know if a lot of people realize this, but District 4 has more linear and segmented miles of interstate than any of the other 11 engineering districts, including Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, or the greater Harrisburg area. So we have more interstate than anyone else in the area.
That's a lot of maintenance and a lot of folks. And I know I work with so many working for PennDOT myself. I work with so many of the folks that do just a great job, like Mitch Simon, who does an incredible job for Wayne County. Dave Masiak in Lackawanna County. Of course, my good friend and neighbor in Duryea, Sam Galanti, who I work with in Luzerne County. Of course, we're not forgetting Susquehanna and Wyoming and the other counties as well with Pike. But these folks, they know their area, they know their work, and they really produce for the department, Dennis.
Absolutely. They do a phenomenal job. I'm very blessed to have the managers that I have working for me. You mentioned some of them. Bob Thorne is in Susquehanna, Wyoming, and Kenny Thiel is up in Pike. It's a thankless job, Rusty. It's very difficult to get things right and very difficult to manage your budget and provide levels of service and the types of roadways that the people want to drive on.
You know, and it's laughable too, Dennis, but you know, you talk about a state organization like the Department of Transportation in any state, not just the Commonwealth. You know, it takes a week just to get the paperwork to put something in. Anything big moves at the big machine moves at a very slow pace, Dennis.
Right. Well, that can be said for maintenance as well, but we do try to be a little bit more acute to the customer's needs. Again, I go back to your original question about what's changed with PennDOT. PennDOT has become a very customer-driven organization. We care about what the customer thinks of our work, whether it be winter, whether it be summer. We try to provide the smoothest roads possible given the dollars that we have to improve. And we take our customers' input very seriously. As a matter of fact, through our CCC center, we have to get back to our customers within 24 hours with an answer as to what we can do to potentially alleviate their concerns.
It's really amazing. You know, in the old days, like I mentioned, Raleigh Keesling, this is back when I started traffic. There were no traffic reports before October 23rd, 1990 in this area. Anything before that was maybe a mention, a blurb on the news or something. But before I started regular helicopter and airplane traffic with KRZ back in 1990, you weren't even relegated to having a fax from the department because nobody did it.
Right.
PennDOT blazed the trail, which we all followed, in keeping the public up to date via the media with exactly right what segment and what hours you guys are going to be doing guide rail work tomorrow. I mean, that was really above and beyond the call of duty. That's 27 years ago. So, I mean, this has really this is a fine oiled machine.
It is.
As of the past, I'd say 15 years or so, Dennis.
Absolutely. And we continue to try to define it even better. We try to tell the customers what the issue we're doing. We tell the customers how long it's going to be delayed. And we try to also tell them what we're doing so that when they're driving through there, they have an understanding of why we're there. And we recently had a situation, if I might talk about Interstate 81, where we were out on Interstate 81 recently doing some repairs to pavement that was failing much before its time.
And let me say, as early as possible, starting at 5 in the morning to avoid the rush hour.
Exactly. When you have a road like Interstate 81 that's 40,000 cars a day, combined with some of the construction in Luzerne County near the the 315 interchange, we had some problems going northbound, and a lot of people were very upset with us. Some of the things that I don't think our customers realize, Rusty, is that it is very difficult right now, or impossible, to get material at night to patch these roads.
That's correct. Quarries are not open.
Exactly. They don't run 24/7. We would have to pay them, and we're willing to do that. We would have to pay them to open, heat up their machines, and make the blacktop. And we're not quite sure if they would do it for the amount of tonnage we would need for the nighttime patching. But we are. I'm very happy to say that we are currently working with all of our blacktop plants in the area, and we're trying to work something out, some sort of an agreement that we don't have to delay our customers during the day along the Interstate 81 corridor. Now, you will see us on the other parts of the interstates in 84, 380, northern Susquehanna, and I-81 there. We will work during the day. But along the corridor, which is kind of defined as Scranton and Wilkes-Barre, we are really going to try to do all of our work at night. And this is based on our customers' input.
So the good thing is that there's always light at the end of the tunnel. Usually it's not an oncoming train, but the good thing for the department is that you've been getting a lot of praise lately, which is very, very rare for any organization, not just PennDOT.
True.
But I think the blizzard of this year stands out as one of the most praised events. And of course, we all watch Talkback 16 for the phone calls that come in. I don't think there was one negative comment, of course, with the shuttling of the boy, of the child who needed help from the Pocono Medical Center out to Danville with plows and state police and PennDOT escorts, even some from Luzerne County.
Right.
I know that I think either Kenny Kozel or Doug Yakubowski went with those folks. And it's like nothing but praise for the department and the handling of that blizzard. And to think that it was the mildest winter on record 2 years ago and the second mildest this year, that really came as the ultimate surprise. And to do a good job in that is really landmark.
We have excellent folks. Our operators and our foremen and our management staff are great, great people. They do a phenomenal job. And Rusty, I have to say, when the tough get going is when it starts to snow. They really rise to the occasion. As it relates to the 30-inch blizzard, PennDOT has an excellent way that we prepare for our storms. It's all about preparation. We start talking about this the week before. A couple days when we finally nail down the forecast, we will have a WebEx, a statewide WebEx, and we'll talk about manpower, we talk about resources, we talk about weather throughout the rest of the Commonwealth. And the reason we do that is we were able to get a mobile emergency team from District 1, which is the Erie area. They drove down before the storm and were able to help us out on Interstate 81, 380, and 84 during the brunt of the storm so that we never had issues along the interstate.
Exemplary dealings with the blizzard of 2017. We're with Dennis Giordano from PennDOT District 4, the main man out of Dunmore, handling 6 counties. Let's talk about a couple of projects coming up right now, Dennis. The replacement of the 380 bridges. That's a huge deal. I remember it was 1975. I was only driving for about 2 years. I got my driver's license in 1973. And that part, as you well know, wasn't completed yet. You had to get off and come through the Hamlin area on 590 that way. But you know, people are saying, why do these need to be replaced? Well, first of all, it's a whole different design structure from 1975. But that's going to be the next big thing, Dennis.
Yes, in Lackawanna County, Rusty, over the next couple of years, that is probably the biggest project coming. That is we call that the Twin Bridges. So, I mean, you know, that's an area that's concrete pavement on either side. Concrete pavement does take a little bit more salt to melt ice and snow than does blacktop, just because of the residual ambient temperatures of the surface. And those bridges have just gotten too much salt on them over the years, and they're just starting to be corroded. One of the biggest things I did want to mention to you today, and I don't know if your viewers or our customers realize, is that PennDOT, especially in Engineering District 4.0, we are spending a lot of money on slides. I'm not a geologist, and you're probably better prepared to discuss this than I am, but what I'm told by Rich Bohr, who's our guy, he said, Dennis, at one point in time, the northeastern Pennsylvania was underwater during prehistoric times.
Correct.
So, you know, here we are, PennDOT, and it starts with the Indians, quite frankly, back in the 1700s.
This was a glacial area before that.
Exactly.
That is correct.
And now PennDOT is paying the price for this. We tried to build roads on shelves on the side of mountains, which is just the way the trails were built back then. And unfortunately, the soil holding them up just isn't strong soil. Perfect example. We just led a project up in Wayne County today to redo a slide on 191. It was $6.5 million, Rusty. Several of them in Wayne County, more in Susquehanna, some in Wyoming, a little one up in Jessup. We probably spent $25 million on slides over the last couple years. We could have paved every road in Luzerne County over at least twice.
Look at the rebuilding of 84. Now that was the highway, that was the last to be put in, the last to be finished, and that was more or less easy access at the time. Now, of course, it's up there, not quite with the volume of vehicles as an 81 or an 80, but really up there. And again, it's not the levels when you take the core sample and you go down to the actual aggregate and the binder of the concrete.
Right.
It's not the topical layer, the finishing cream of the concrete. It's the
base.
Exactly. It's
base.
the aggregate that's causing all these golf ball-sized divots in these roadways. And it goes back to exactly what you're saying about the geological impact of the area. There's a lot more than getting a dump truck full of hot macadam and laying this on the roadway.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of science and engineering, but that was a massive project still underway, the Interstate 84. That is insurmountable in cost of dollars, Dennis.
Well, actually, it's funny. I did some research before I came on the show today. There's 5 sections. One has been completed. That would have been from the New York State line to Milford.
Right, toward Milford.
And now Milford, and we're working our way, I guess you would say,
towards Lord's Valley.
Correct. And there's 3 more sections to come after that. Based on the average cost per mile, now that depends on the amount of bridges, your profiles and drainage. It's approximately $5.7 million per mile to do Interstate 84 over. So that's going to wind up to be a $300-400 million project.
The whole interstate didn't cost that much in '64.
You're right.
And folks always say about, you know, the big, and myself being an engineer and a PE, and they always say about how long it takes to do things. So you don't realize. To replace a bridge on 81, you have to first of all build a temporary bridge or try and wean traffic onto an extended lane. Then you got to tear down the old bridge and replace it. Then you got to wait till that cures, you got to put the traffic back on, then tear down the temporary bridge. When you were building the interstates between 64 and 1968, you just had fields and pastures.
Pretty much.
It was clear sailing through the whole thing once they had. This is a very complex flow plan to get traffic to not be inconvenienced by the addition or replacement of a bridge, Dennis, correct?
That's excellent. Right now along the interstate, and along the interstate, when we do construction, we pretty much along the corridor, we have to maintain 2 lanes of traffic. So, you know, everybody talks about we should widen Interstate 81 in the corridor. Quite frankly, probably over the next, I may not see it in my tenure, but my replacement probably that's probably going to happen.
I say.
And the reason being is because for us to maintain two lanes of traffic, we're going to have to build additional lanes anyway. So through the process of reconstructing Interstate 81, which is way overdue, we will probably wind up to get the additional laneage that we need as it relates to that.
That's a good thing, and a lot of folks I know ask me as well about, I said, well, do you ever notice that all the bridges now are extended to 3 lanes with 2 shoulders?
Yep.
Very smart to see that forward futuristic thinking,
Yep.
because the bridges are already now 3 lane in anticipation. But you know, a lot of the right-of-way is tough. You have to go now toward the median to do do this.
Right.
You just can't make this 3 lanes overnight.
Yeah,
No.
there's cemeteries and there's
Exactly.
private residential homes, commercial homes. It is difficult. But I would say we're looking to start preliminary engineering in about 2020 to start looking at the reconstruction
amazing.
of I-81.
Right around the corner.
We're actually going to let a project in 2020 for, and this goes back to the interstate, for reconstruction of Interstate 81 in Susquehanna County from the New York State line to the lakeside exit, which is basically
Lakeside.
the Montrose
Montrose,
exit.
Lakeside, yeah.
That is a $148 million project. Just that. It's only 14 miles. I say only, but it's a large piece, but everything is so expensive.
It is, and the labor is a big part of it. And again, from 1964, you're talking almost 60 years ago. I mean, things were a lot different in 1964.
Correct, and even on a federal level, everybody's competing for federal funds now. Not only Pennsylvania, but all of the states are competing. The airports, the railways, all the other non-traditional
The buses.
modes. Exactly, all the other non-traditional modes of transportation. Back when we built the interstate, it was pretty much, planes, trains, and automobiles, if you will.
Exactly.
Automobiles being the most popular.
Exactly.
And now it's not that way anymore. When we build a road, we try to accommodate for bicycles, which is a big thing from our Secretary of Transportation.
To share the road deal.
Yeah, share the road with the other people. So there's a lot of different factors that are involved when we talk about funding of the interstates and so on and so forth. So it's an interesting dynamic.
It is indeed, and an ever-changing dynamic as well. I got to ask you about this. I got to beat you up on the roundabouts.
That's okay. That's okay.
Now, the roundabouts, there's one right up where I live, right off of Foote Avenue in Duryea. Right up the hill is the big Wilkes-Barre-Scranton International Airport interchange. And you know what? I really don't. I mean, they say, well, of course, the technology. Well, it's got nothing to do with it. I don't see anything wrong with these roundabouts, but I do tell people that they are a big cost-saving deal, and their safety as well, because they eliminate a hard intersection.
That's exactly correct.
And 9 out of 10 people say, you know what? I accept that. I said it's true. I said there's no broadsides, there's no front end collisions.
Correct.
It eliminates a hard intersection at those 3, but they are confusing.
I do have some facts for you, Rusty, today.
Good.
I know you're a fact.
Yes, I am a total fact kind of guy.
26 people per day are killed in intersections throughout the country per day.
How about that?
Every day.
How about that?
The roundabouts actually started in England in the 60s. And you're 100% right. A roundabout is simply a round intersection instead of a T right angle intersection. The thing that makes them different from some of the other things that we've seen in the past, and they said it's nothing different than a traffic circle.
Exactly, a rotary.
But they're not. And the reason I say that is because when you have the rotaries or the old traffic circles, the traffic came in off of intersecting roads.
Correct.
They weren't channelized.
That's correct.
In a roundabout, all the traffic is channelized. They're entering at a 40 degree angle. Speeds are much lower.
Absolutely.
And there's a center point.
Absolutely.
The center point around the
Absolutely.
roundabout. I understand the frustration in and around the airport. And Rusty, I would have to say that it was probably the fact that it's something that isn't new. It was very new to our customers. It was a new way to manage traffic. But they're 62% safer.
That's a great statistic.
So,
you're right. You can't argue facts.
No, and they don't. Facts are stubborn allies.
No, really, exactly right.
And those are facts. And we're trying to make our roads safer as well as trying to keep them up. And I thought that was a great move. We're also going to be putting one, I believe, on 118, and there's going to be another one up in the 5-point intersections in Dallas.
Yes, Dallas.
So
and then the ones by LCC when the new South Valley Parkway gets near fruition, as a matter of fact.
So we're really working hard to make the roads safer because, quite frankly, we're struggling with fatalities. We really are. Between speeds
And wrong way drivers
wrong way
lately.
drivers, which is a whole other thing that we're struggling with. And unfortunately, and I hate to say it, the cell phone-itis. I mean, people
Right.
are addicted to
You're right.
information.
Information.
And it's to the point where they can't even put them down long enough to travel between point A and point B.
You better believe it. You better
So-
believe it. Single point focus. I think, Dennis, that the rub therein lies with the folks around here complaining about rotaries, roundabouts. And they're right, is because when I still worked, my last years were in the early 90s, and when I lived in New Jersey, worked in New York, and they were getting rid of all their rotaries out there. So it's kind of like, I think that's a good point to fall back on, is if the Garden State got rid of all their rotaries, why are they building them here? It's not the same thing.
Correct.
And these are federally mandated as well.
Correct.
A lot of folks
Well,
don't know that.
for
the most part.
they're federally recommended.
Federally recommended.
You know what I mean? And it's kind of a fallacy. They're really not that much cheaper to build. Quite frankly, they may be a little bit more an initial cost. But there's no, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is when we build an intersection, all of the traffic lights and all of the hardware and all the wiring,
Detection loops
all
under
of
the
that
pavement. That's right.
usually becomes the responsibility of the local municipality.
Right.
Now, local municipalities are having the same trouble financing their infrastructure as we are. And they're sometimes reluctant to sign an agreement to say, yeah, okay, you build it and we'll take it over. And we certainly can't afford to take it over either. So, the roundabout, not rotary, but the roundabout is a safe, less cost-effective option for some of the municipalities. And we're seeing where it's not a one-size-fits-all, but in where it makes sense, we like to try to see if it fits.
As you know, I knew a lot about PennDOT before I worked for PennDOT, but that was an interesting fact that I could not believe, that almost every intersection except one in the back mountain, traffic signal-wise, is not a PennDOT intersection. They're all by the local municipalities.
Correct.
Now, I'll bet 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 folks don't know that. That's an interesting setup. You would think on a state highway, a U.S. highway, or or an SR route of any
Right,
kind,
right.
that they would be maintained by PennDOT. But that's amazing how that got broken down into the borough, municipality, town,
I'll be
township.
honest
Dennis.
with you, Rusty. I'm here 33 years. I don't know exactly how that
Yeah, exactly.
how that transpired years ago. Maybe some of our forefathers at PennDOT had the foresight to say, hey, if we keep building traffic lights, we're not going to be able to do anything
You're not
else.
kidding. To divest that.
So let's see if we can make that, get some help from the local municipalities, and then they bought into it, and here we are. Now, unfortunately, they're in the same boat as well. So we take it on a case-by-case basis, and we try to work with them we try to work with them all the time and see if we can come up with something positive.
So good to talk to you about these different things that I know that I get hit with a lot, even from the radio days and the television days. But anything other big coming up you want to discuss with us, Dennis? Anything big? The South Valley Parkway, is that another thing? Is that really necessary?
I think so, Rusty.
Maybe not at the moment.
I think it will be necessary in the near future if it is. I think it's necessary now because of the problems we've had along what they call Main Road down there, Kosciuszko Boulevard,
Sure.
which are the main arteries into Luzerne County Community College.
From the entrance to where Nabisco was, right
Correct.
there, for the all the way down to LCC in Netico.
The
You're right.
traffic coming through residential sections of kids on bicycles and people crossing.
The big cemetery in Hanover Township is right there.
Exactly.
Before middle, on
So it was just a bad situation, and quite frankly, I think the Luzerne County Community College, as well as all of our local community college, has experienced phenomenal growth, and I could see Luzerne County Community Colleges keep growing and growing and growing, and this will make access to that college much easier and much quicker for the people coming off I-81, and I think it's an economic boost to the Luzerne County area as well as the college. So to answer your question, yeah, I think we're building for the future, but we're also building for safety, and I think that's going to make that whole Nanticoke neighborhood much, much safer.
No, I agree. Look at the 6th, the Casey Highway. When that was done, that was 10 years of planning to do the interchange for 84, 380, 81 in Dunmore. And then that was US 6, which bypassed, which is now Business Route 6, the Scranton-Carbondale Highway. Look at the traffic on that now. Go
Right.
back 10 years. You could lay down at 3 o'clock in the morning in the middle of the road for
Yeah.
half an hour and not see a car.
Right.
Look at that now. With all the
grown.
industrial parks, with McLean Trucking up in the Jessup area, all the industrial parks there, the 911 center up the street in Jessup. And of course, the through
Now the-
traffic
the
to
power-
White's
the
Cross
power
and the
plant.
Invenergy power
Yep,
plant
yep.
right there. I mean, you really have to have great foresight to see these things coming down Main Street, Dennis.
Yeah, and you know what they say, the old saying, build it and they'll come?
Yes.
Well, we built it and they came, and it helps, it certainly helps Lackawanna County in their jobs and so on and so forth, but it brings up a good point that we talk, I'd like to talk a little bit about winter.
Yes.
Winter is something that we struggle with, every engineer and every person at PennDOT struggles with, because we try to provide levels of service that are acceptable to our customers where they can get from point A to point B safely. Unfortunately, over time, Rusty, expectations have grown exponentially. I'll date myself, but when I was going to grade school, very rarely did the school buses ever call off. They drove during snow-covered roads.
You
we got
and me
there,
both.
and we got to school, and we got back.
2 days in 4 years of Pittston area. 2 days.
4 years of Mid-Valley.
There you go. Never had a problem.
Now it's such that if there's snow predicted and there's any chance other than wet roads in the morning, they're calling off the school.
No.
So people are saying, you know, to our customers, if the roads aren't wet, they're terrible. And this winter cost us $32 million. Now, I'm not suggesting that we would ever skimp on winter, because we would never do that. We will provide the level of resources and manpower that we need to do to get the job done. But what the people need to realize is that every dollar I spend on winter, I can't spend on roads and bridges in the summer, because there's only an X amount of dollars in the budget. So,
Final question. Most interesting part of your job, Dennis?
the most interesting part of my job, believe it or not, Rusty, is innovation. Trying to make difference. We've done a lot of innovative things, I think, in District 4. We're trying to make a difference. We're trying to work on our 4-digit SRs right now, because Act 89 is certainly doing a phenomenal job helping us improve our
And those
traffic
are the more
routes.
outlying areas.
Correct.
They go
Like
out from that.
the 4-digit SRs, the
Correct.
back roads, if
Correct.
you will. So we're working on that, and we've been able to start getting some money from central office to work on that. And I like the fact that I'm doing something different every day. And I like to talk to our customers, and I like them to understand what we do, and that's probably what I like most about my job.
You do a great job, and thanks so much for coming down.
No problem.
It was
Thank you
great
very
to
much
see you.
for having
Absolutely,
me.
Dennis, as always, Dennis Giordano. He is the head man, District 4, 6 counties, Wayne, Pike, Susquehanna, Wyoming, Luzerne, and Lackawanna, based in the Keystone Industrial Park in Dunmore. Thank you so much for Dennis and all the work that the fine folks at PennDOT District 4 and the other districts do here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. David E. Cosmo will be back next week. Hope to see you soon, David. Rusty Fender with you for this week on ECTV Live. My thanks to Mark McGlory for keeping everything in focus, as David says. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week, and a good Memorial Day week and weekend here on ECTV Live.